I never believed in the tales of grave torture. Growing up, my parents often spoke of the afterlife, warning us about the consequences of our actions. But I dismissed it all as superstition, until that fateful day when everything changed. The world around me shattered when I lost my parents in a suicide bombing. The chaos, the screams, the blood, it all blurred into a nightmare I couldn't wake from. My brother, Alex, and I were left to pick up the pieces, haunted by the loss and the questions that lingered in the air. Why did this happen? What drove a person to such madness? As I tried to make sense of it all, I became obsessed with one thought: grave torture. I had to prove it was a myth. I needed to show that the fear of punishment in the afterlife was nothing but a tool to control us. So, I set out on a dangerous quest to find the most sinful person I could, someone whose life was steeped in darkness. That's when I met David, a resident at the nursing home where I worked. He was notorious for his past sins, a man whose life was a tapestry of wrongdoings. I thought if I could prove that he wouldn't suffer in his grave, I could finally silence the whispers of fear that haunted me. I spent hours with David, listening to his stories, trying to understand the man behind the sins. But as I delved deeper, strange things began to happen. I started seeing shadows lurking in the corners of my vision, and I could hear whispers that sent chills down my spine. The more I learned about David, the more I felt the weight of the grave pressing down on me. One night, driven by a mix of curiosity and defiance, I made the reckless decision to enter David's grave. Armed with nothing but a flashlight and my skepticism, I descended into the darkness. The air was thick with an otherworldly presence, and I could feel the ground pulse beneath me, as if it were alive. As I stood there, surrounded by the silence of the dead, I called out to David, challenging the very essence of my beliefs. But what I encountered was beyond my worst nightmares. The grave was not empty, it was filled with the echoes of tormented souls, their cries piercing through the darkness. I felt their pain, their anger, and their despair. In that moment, my skepticism shattered. I realized that grave torture was not just a myth, it was a reality that I had foolishly dismissed. The weight of my disbelief crushed me as I understood the consequences of my actions. I had ventured too far into a realm I was never meant to challenge. As I crawled out of that grave, gasping for breath, I knew I could never return to the life I once had. The whispers of the grave would follow me, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the veil of life. I had sought to disprove a belief, but in doing so, I had awakened something far more terrifying than I could have ever imagined. Now, I live with the knowledge that some truths are better left undiscovered, and the grave holds secrets that should never be disturbed. The fear I once dismissed now clings to me like a shadow, a reminder of the price of curiosity and the weight of the sins we carry.